So thank you for joining us today. What we're looking at is ESS BIZGrants. So what we're going to look at in this webinar is what is ESS BIZGrants, how is it used, what are the sort of reports that can be produced to assist you in dealing with your clients. The basic information that you will be required to input into the system will be a client profile. There are 20 questions to be answered, and these questions are trying to get some general information about the client so that ESS BIZGrants can produce a initial report on the type of grants that might suit that client. Then you'll be required to answer some further questions. If we'd placed all the questions up front, we would have had over 800 questions. So we've decided to do it in this way because what we're trying to do is to assist you to zero in on the grants that apply to this particular client that you're working on. Incidentally, if you have any questions, can you just type in a question and send it through to us, and I'll answer the questions towards the end of the webinar. If you think of questions subsequent to the webinar, please send us an email or a telephone call, and we will answer those questions for you at that stage. The system has a couple of other components. We have a grant toolkit whereby you can access a paper and in some cases some additional information on a particular grant so that you can review it. The system will give you a direct link to the various government departments' websites so that you could access the application form for a particular grant if you wish to do so. And the system will produce a report that you can give to your client. The investment for a standalone subscription to ESS BIZGrants is $450 plus GST. That gives you 24/7 access for 12 months per office to utilize ESS BIZGrants. So within an office you can have as many authors as you wish. ESS BIZGrants is also incorporated within the ESS BizTools Gold package. So if you're a Gold subscriber to ESS BizTools, you receive a free subscription to ESS BIZGrants as part of your package. So we believe that ESS BIZGrants assists accountants and advisors to quickly identify government grants for individual small medium enterprises without you having to go off and deal with other consultants. You will be in control of what's happening relative to your clients. The system's been developed by ESS BizTools, come about through our interest in government grants, and we've been assisted by our software web designer, Real Advantage Solutions, in developing this product. So when you insert the information into the client profiles, we're going to be looking for the key information that government departments require when they're assessing eligibility for grants. This can include corporate structure. It's very important. There's no doubt that the most popular entity from a government bureaucracy point of view for grants is a company. Some of the government people really believe that you're not serious in business unless you're operating a company. So companies figure in most of the grants as being an eligible structure, but there are some other structures, partnerships, individuals, etc., that can be successful in some grants. Turnover is very important, both for minimum turnover and maximum turnover. in the majority of grants. Some grants don't talk about turnover, but most do, one way or another. Employee numbers can be of importance, especially in some of the state government grants around Australia. Location is very important. There are some particular benefits depending on the locations of the business. They've been reduced as time goes by, and the real benefits now are in the outer regional areas and the remote and very remote areas. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Expenditure comes into play in the Enterprise Connect grants, and we'll talk about that when we get to the form. Exports, obviously, if the business is exporting, they can access the Export Market Development Grant, and depending on which state they operate from, some states have export grants. Research and development is not only important for the research and development incentive for companies, but it can serve as a link to a possible grant opportunity from Commercialisation Australia. Commercialisation Australia require a business to have developed a new product, process or service, and therefore in our assumption we're assuming that those type of businesses would have undertaken some research and development. Type of business is important and industry is important. Most government departments are utilising the Australian and New Zealand industrial codes, and that's what we're using within this product. What you're then going to get is a list of some possible grants, which we call a pending list. If you think some of those grants are items that could be of interest for that particular, and you will be given some additional information. You'll be told about the funding for that grant. You'll be given access to a grant toolkit whereby there will be a paper and some additional information pertaining to that grant, and you will then be invited to answer some supplementary questions. So these are some additional questions that are required to be answered so that we can qualify that this client may well be eligible for a particular grant. And depending on that, the particular grant could then be listed under the potentially eligible grant. Once you have the potentially eligible grant, you'll be able to, if you wish, link to the applicable government department website to view the application form, and you'll be able to produce a grant report. So what we're going to do at this stage is go on to the website, ESS BIZGrants. For those of you who haven't been there, it's www. And I'll just bring the slide up. It's a separate website. When you go onto it, you can view things, in particular a couple of testimonials. It's always difficult when you're buying a new product, you don't know any of the background of it. This product was suggested to us some 6 years ago by David Smith, who's a director of Smith Inc. 2020 and has had a wide experience in the technology side of accountancy businesses, besides having been the senior partner of PKF in Sydney. David was kind enough to give us that testimonial when he saw the final product. He believes that there's a very strong necessity for accountants to be more involved in business grants, and we've also received a testimonial from Jason Crestney from Alton Chartered Accountants in Bundaberg, Queensland. He's a recent subscriber, and he submitted the testimonial that's on the site there at present. When you go into the system, you can identify some case studies that will give you some further information as to how the system will work. We've developed case studies for 8 different business groups. over 8 different geographical areas of Australia, so that you can get a better understanding of how the system will work. Onto the site, and I've already inserted my password. So when you get into the site itself, there's information about how you can complete the client profile and the other processes, but we'll skip those because I'm going to show you how they work. So when you go to the client profile, you ask for a new client profile. We are using cloud technology, so you can elect whether you're going to place the client's name or a reference number into the system. We do recommend that you leave the data within the system so that it's easier to update it in a year's time. And also in our second version of ESS BIZGrants, which we will be introducing before June 30, we will have the benefit of the system will identify to you for any clients who are already listed in ESS BIZGrants if there has been any new grants included within ESS BIZGrants since you last looked at it that might be suitable for this client. So that's one of the real reasons for leaving the data in. So you can see here we're asking questions about exports, imports, employees. Your client will need an ABN to be able to obtain a grant under this system, because this system is only designed for small, medium enterprise operators. And for those sort of people to get government grants, they need a business number. The turnover is important. And incidentally, I've skipped past something there. I meant to show you the choice of entities. You have got a choice of entities there, the entities that are applicable to the grants that are within ESS BIZGrants, so you'd click onto the applicable grant. The default is companies because it's the most popular. Turnover is the turnover of the businesses, and I said in the introduction, turnover can affect both minimum and maximum. We have an explanation there as to why we've got annual expenditure. Expenditure comes into play in the Enterprise Connect grants, and as Enterprise Connect is arguably the largest individual grant supplier on the number of grants issued for small medium enterprises in Australia, we thought it was necessary to highlight that. So in Enterprise Connect they have a minimum turnover or expenditure requirement, and it's the same amount of money. So for a manufacturer you need a minimum turnover or expenditure of $1.5 million. So you could have a business that's got virtually no turnover and but it's spent $1.55 million on getting ready, research and development, perhaps a pilot plant construction, perhaps a fair bit of money on patent attorneys and registering of patents around the world. That business could theoretically qualify for Enterprise Connect. The businesses, because we're looking at SMEs, they need to be registered for GST. If they're tax exempt businesses, they won't be eligible here because it's a SME type program. If involvement in research and development, as I indicated before, is a trigger for some other grants, particularly Commercialisation Australia. There's a question, is there any concerns about the financial vulnerability of the business? Most government grants now have questions worded similar to this. If you indicate that you do have concerns, you've virtually got no chance of getting a grant, and therefore in our system, if you answer yes to that, you will not be offered grants. But it doesn't mean that you might have some concerns about the business's financial viability. It really means is there a liquidator about to be appointed or a receiver about to be appointed, or is there something else that could cause the government of the day, the minister of the day and the bureaucrat involved some embarrassment if it was reported in the media that a grant had been allocated to a particular entity and that entity was now in a non-performing status. So that's what that's meant by that. Now, to go any further, we needed to have completed some information there. I haven't done that. I thought we would just go back and look at a couple that were already complete. So we've completed numerous examples. I'm just going down to one which I've been using yesterday. I called it the Forbes Motel. And we'll just give you a outline as to how that is working. So in this entity, we called it a company, and we've already entered some information there. They've got 17 employees. They've been going for 8 years. They've got a turnover of 1.9 million, expenditure 1.75. So when you get to that situation, you hit save. In the address details, we've already entered that they're in hopefully a fictitious address in Forbes, but the postcode's correct, 2871, and that's identified Forbes as in an outer regional area of Australia. And that is telling the ESS BIZGrants system software that they've got a special location category, and it will throw up some special potential grants, especially in Enterprise Connect. The financial data is just repeated again. We then have to answer the business and industry profile because virtually every grant refers to it. The first decision you've got to make is what type of business they are. They're the choices that the ANZIC codes give you. We've selected that this business, a motelier, is a service provider, and we then need to select the industry. Under the ANZIC codes, there are 17 industries. We've identified that as this business is a motel, it's in the accommodation, cafe and food services industry. So we've already done that, and you can then search. Now, we've been playing with this one in previous days on other webinars for this week. We've still got at this stage 11 grants that are potentially available. There's a number of apprenticeship grants that most businesses get. In all of our programs, you will see Australian Bureau of Statistics. It's not offering any grants, but it's free material that up until about 5 or 6 years ago, in fact when Peter Costello was the Treasurer, the Bureau of Statistics used to charge about $4,000 for this information, so in some respects it is a grant. There's some fantastic information on populations and trends and analysis of who's who in a local area that's available from this website, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which can be very important. Continuous improvement program is part of Enterprise Connect. When you go into that, it asks the question, and we might go into this so you can see what happens. So I've clicked onto this program. So under grant details, you can read about the grant. So a business that's in Enterprise Connect's continuous improvement program can obtain a $20,000 grant on a 50% basis, literally to do anything that will improve the business's performance. There is a prerequisite to be in the continuous improvement program. The business must have previously completed a stage 1 tailored advisory services scheme. So let's assume you've missed that there, so we'll have a look at the rest so you can see what's going on. Funding details you can get from anywhere from $500 to $20,000 on a 50% basis. If you click into the grant toolkit, you can see that there's a paper there, and if you want the paper, we click onto it. And this is a paper that explains how the continuous improvement program within Enterprise Connect works. There are a whole range of other industries that are supported by Enterprise Connect. Obviously this business in a motel has come up in the tourism sector, but you can see there's a range of industries there, and they are all eligible for the continuous improvement program for businesses that have already been through the process. I'm doing some consultancy on one continuous improvement program at present, and it's really an ongoing mentoring role to advise the or to support the company CEO in achieving their overall objectives. And it's also part of ensuring that the business is appropriately introduced internal procedures so as to apply with the Kaizen culture. Kaizen's a Japanese terminology to assist businesses, primarily manufacturers, but not only manufacturers, to obtain excellence in its management systems and to encourage the empowerment of employees so that they can fulfill the organisational goals of that particular business. So I know that's an area that, especially in manufacturing businesses, that Enterprise Connect are keen to get more traction on around Australia. So there's the paper. You could read that and say, yes, that will suit our particular client. We're then going to answer some additional questions. So the first question is, has the company completed stage 1 of the Enterprise Connect Target Advisory Program for the tourist industry? And we say, oh, no, he hasn't done that. So if I answer no, what is happening now is we've been told that we would be ineligible for that grant, and we've also been told that we're ineligible. Now you can go on and look at the rest of the questions if you like. You could in fact go back and change the answer and say, oh no, we were wrong, but in fact in this case I know that's the correct answer. We haven't been involved. So if we go back to results, under potentially ineligible, we now have the Continuous Improvement Program Tourism Industry selected. If we go back to pending, and we just move through some of these other grants, so obviously that grant has now left that area. Innovative regions, there are regions within most of the states that have been identified as being innovative regions. If you wanted to, you could click onto that to find out where they were, and you can see in New South Wales it's Illawarra, Central Coast and Lithgow, and therefore we said this business was in Forbes. I don't believe it would be covered by any of those, so you wouldn't worry about that particular grant. It's we're not going to be looking for relief there. The same thing is about natural disaster. There are grants available at present for some of the more recent New South Wales disasters, but if you know your client, you would probably know whether he or she was involved in any of those, and if you said no, they weren't, we won't worry about it. But then we got here remote enterprises. Now we'll click on this one because I'm going to use it to explain how the system can work. Remote enterprises is part of Enterprise Connect. And it's available to businesses which are located in a remote location, but it's also available to businesses who operate in outer regional areas of Australia with substantial operations or activity in remote Australia may also be eligible. So if you've got any of your clients who are operating in outer regional areas, and obviously Forbes is one of those, as are most of the major regional cities, that have substantial operations or activity in remote Australia, they may be eligible. Now the great benefit of the remote location category is that the turnover for that enterprise only needs to be a minimum of $750,000, and they can be operating in any type of industry, and they only need an ABN. They don't need to be a company, which is what you normally have to be eligible for Enterprise Connect grants. So if we follow it through on that, we can then see the funding details are the same as the others. We could identify the grant toolkit, and there's a paper and a bit of other information there. You would have to answer the additional criteria, which would ask you for other questions. The key thing there is the business supplying more than or earning more than 50% of its income from businesses in those remote locations. So if we answered yes, they're doing that. Has the firm previously received a fund grant? We'll say no, they haven't received one. Do you believe the business will comply with the remote location? Yes, because we are servicing clients in those areas. Is the expenditure over $750,000 or the turnover over $750,000? We say yes. And has the business been operating for at least 3 years? Because that's one of the Enterprise Connect requirements. We answer yes to that. Now, what has happened? The system is now telling you that you're potentially eligible for that grant. If you wanted to, you could click on Apply Now, and that URL is the Enterprise Connect URL for their website. And if you wished, you could click on that, and that would take you to that website. But that takes a little bit of time, so we'll go back to results. And in potentially eligible, we now have remote firms that operate in remote Australia. That's where we work. And obviously, the category we're coming in on there is we are a business in a outer regional area that is supplying more than 50% of its income to, or earning more than 50% of its income from businesses in remote locations. So within the potentially eligible, we have already established that there are 3 other activities that are potentially eligible. I just want to explain one of these. This business is in the tourism sector, so we've already identified that in their own right they could have applied for Enterprise Connect because their turnover is over $1 million. I think we said it was $1.9 million. They're in the tourism industry, so that they could potentially apply. But the other one we have already identified that they could be eligible for is as a group. Now, a group in the tourist industry can be individual businesses that have turnovers over $500,000, and so that the total minimum turnover within the group is $2 million. So this is a group of companies coming together, and they have to be in a select area of the tourism industry. So it's called tourism industry individual sectors. Tourist accommodation, well, obviously that's a motel. Attractions, businesses offering food and beverage tasting experiences. I like that one. I think that would be very good. And on a Friday lunchtime, I'm probably thinking of that. The operation of tours or travel agency services. So you could put a group together. And now, whilst this Forbes Motel, this hypothetical client, could have applied in their own right, we're just giving you an example here. They could have applied as part of a group if they had a few other businesses that might have been in some of these other areas of activity that they wanted to come together to do something jointly, develop a supply chain. And in fact, I think in every area of Australia, you could be looking at supply chain type activities within the tourism industry. Now, you can form groups under Enterprise Connect for each of the 12 industry groups that Enterprise Connect supports. So there's some great opportunities here for accountants to organise that, and business advisors. The other key factor is that each of those entities can then secure up to $20,000 in grants, although the businesses that only have turnovers between $500,000 and $1 million can only seek $10,000 from the government, and obviously the individual companies have to match the money. So you could have a pool of money of $160,000 to do some real work with. Might be developing a business plan, a strategy, putting some product or services together. It's a whole range of things, and a fair bit of that work possibly could be done by the accountant. So in the grant toolkit, there is a paper which is explaining how that works. And we've got some additional criteria which we had previously answered to speed up the webinar. So if we go back to results now, we've got these 4 potentially eligible grants. At this stage we might decide we're going to go with those and in a very proactive manner give the client a report. So the grant report would come out in the name of the client. It would have your name on it, not ESS BizTools, so it's the name of the licensed user of ESS BizTools. You've got a brief summary of how this grant works. So this one here is on the remote enterprises. And then the funding details. There is a disclaimer at the bottom of each page. I'll come back to that in a moment. Then we also have the tourism sector group, so you're giving your client the opportunity to look at this and think about it and say, yeah, geez, I'd like to do something with the travel agent, and there's a vineyard out of town that's putting on great meals and great wine tasting experiences. They'd fit under that other category, and so on. The business could also have applied for researchers in business, which is up to $50,000 on a 12-month basis to apply against the costs of employing a graduate to help the business. Then we got the tourism sector that the business could have applied for in its own right because its turnover was over $1 million. So the company could have a look at that. And the New South Wales government has a grant for women in business to undertake some training. So we indicated that a lady was running this business, so you could see that that grant would come up, and whilst there's no direct grant, there's an invitation to some specific training that's available. The disclaimer at the bottom of each page includes the name ESS BizTools. In our version 2, it will also have the subscriber's name, and basically the disclaimer is saying that whilst our system is identifying that the SME client might be eligible for a grant, there is no guarantee that they'll actually receive the grant because they've got to go through the process of actually applying to a government department. So just go back to the beginning of that. That's how the system works. You input the data, the system then goes through and does an initial sort. You have to answer a few extra questions, and you will then be produced a report, and in a very proactive manner you are then able to submit that report to your client, and your client will be able to decide then which grant that they are interested in applying for. It's up to you then to put a proposal to the client as to whether you are going to handle the application process, and obviously that is now a separate assignment and you can charge for it separately. So that's the introduction to ESS BIZGrants. We've only had one question that relates to copies of the webinar, and yes, we will email you the recording on this webinar. Is there any further questions? Can you please type them in now? Or alternatively, send us an email at the end of the webinar, or make a telephone call to us. My email is peter@essbiztools.com.au. We'd love to hear from you. So hopefully that's given you an idea of what ESS BIZGrants is all about. We see it as part of the range of tools that accountants should be using. We obviously endorse David Smith's comments that every accountant's office in Australia should have a copy of this system to help accountants to assist their clients in these very difficult trading times of being able to identify government grants and get a bit of the government money. Taxpayers are paying for it all. Your clients are just as entitled to it as anyone else's clients.